Hi everyone, today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. Please support my channel. Click subscribe and on the bell. Mad Professor. The life we live appears ordinary and measured. School, university, work, family, daily routine. A never-ending cycle of events. We live in our own world, paying little attention to what happens around us. Watching news reports or TV shows about terrible incidents or crimes, we absorb the information without deeply engaging with it. What happened is horrific, we think, but it's far away and not our concern. Yet, evil is closer than it seems. Unfortunately, no one is completely safe from it. That's why it's important to cherish what we have. Even a simple, mundane life isn't the worst scenario. I believe the families of those who encountered the dark side of life would agree, and the victims themselves would give anything to avoid the nightmare they endured and have a chance at a healthy future. What have you heard about serial criminals and perpetrators? Mentally ill individuals, heartless villains, crazy geniuses. They manage to commit terrible crimes for a long time and remain unpunished. They hold entire neighborhoods and cities in fear. However, most of them eventually get caught. Some accidentally come to the attention of the police. Others leave clues intentionally, wanting to be caught. Such characters receive significant attention in literature and film. We pick up a book or watch a thriller to give ourselves a fright. But we always have the option to stop reading or turn off the movie. Unfortunately, this choice isn't available in real life for those who fall into their traps. There probably isn't a single country in the world that hasn't faced such a situation. The new criminal story will tell us about an unstable maniac who operated in Belgium. Ronald Jansen. Ronald Allen Jansen was born on February 6, 1971, in the city of Borcel, Limburg Province, Belgium. He was the third of 4 children in the family. His father worked as a miner and his mother as a housekeeper. From childhood, Ronnie realized he could only rely on himself. To escape poverty, he needed a push, and he decided that the best path to success would be through a future profession. So the teenager studied diligently. Teachers treated him well at school and distinguished him from others. This, of course, didn't please his peers. At home, relations with his parents left much to be desired. Mr. Jansen had a bad temper and often lashed out at his family. As Ronnie grew older, he realized this behavior was abnormal and left home. After some time, his mother and the other children followed his example. Thanks to his knowledge, our protagonist easily got into a university in Hasselt. Later, he changed his mind about his chosen major and transferred to Leuven, where he studied engineering. Since money was tight, he actively worked part-time during his studies and helped his family. Finally, in 1993, he earned his long-awaited ticket to life, a diploma in industrial engineering with honors. That same year, Ronald met a girl. Natalie was 3 years older than him, born in the Netherlands. However, the age and cultural differences didn't bother the couple at all. They liked each other immediately and started dating. In 1995, the couple married. The following year, they moved to Genk, where his wife got a job offer. The head of the family also found work quickly, as his skills were in demand everywhere. He took a job as a technical and production manager. In 1998, Ronnie unexpectedly changed fields and started teaching mechanics and computer science at a local school. It must be said that he excelled in this area as well. He was respected and recognized. Everyone considered Jansen an educated and intelligent man, easy to talk to. In 2000, the family moved again, this time to Halen, where Ronald began teaching computer science, economics, and applied mechanics. As for his personal life, it initially seemed to be going well. Our protagonist didn't want to repeat his father's mistakes, so he tried to remain calm in his relationships. He and his wife dreamed of having a large family. In 1998, their first daughter was born, and 3 years later, their second. However, the arrival of children played a fatal role. You see, Ronald had suffered from chronic insomnia his whole life. With the birth of his daughters, his sleep problems worsened. Due to the constant crying and noise in the house, Ronald became irritable. the couple began to have misunderstandings and arguments. To cope with his condition and the growing tension, the head of the family often went for walks to get some fresh air. Eventually, the marriage began to fall apart. In 2006, Natalie left him, taking the children with her. Many acquaintances noted that Ronald changed after the divorce. He became quiet, withdrawn, and possibly depressed. Neighbors often saw him walking alone at night. However, the respected professor explained it as a sleep disorder. Although his behavior seemed strange, it didn't cause much alarm. Nevertheless, on January 4, 2010, there was a knock on Jansen's door. Fire on the highway. The reason for visiting Ronald was a recent incident. On a highway near the city of Diest, a car, an Opel Corsa, caught fire. On January 3rd at 2:43 a.m., a call was made to emergency services. When firefighters arrived at the scene, they discovered people inside the burning vehicle. Unfortunately, they couldn't be saved. The bodies of the two individuals were sent for examination. However, unexpected circumstances emerged during the autopsy. Using dental records, the bodies were identified. It was determined that 18-year-old Shayna Appletans and 22-year-old Kevin Paulus lost their lives due to gunshot wounds long before the fire occurred. This means someone ended the lives of the young people and then set the car on fire to cover their tracks. The double crime disturbed the local residents, who feared going out at night or letting their children play outside. They connected the incident to the crime of a young girl 3 years earlier. They demanded an immediate investigation to find and punish the criminal. The police were also eager to start the investigation and reassure the public. Many questions arose. Who were Kevin Paulus and Shayna Appletans? Who was responsible for their deaths and why? And perhaps the most pressing, was there a connection between this crime and the other incident? The disappearance of Ani. The small town of Diest was deeply upset that the tragic passing of 18-year-old Anch van Eitzel had remained unsolved for so long. Ani disappeared on April 27, 2007, after attending a Catholic party. She was a modest, kind girl, a diligent student, and a loyal friend. On that ill-fated Friday, she went with friends to the suburbs. The event she planned to attend was different from the popular ones for her age group. People of all ages attended, from children to adults. Everyone gathered to sing, dance, play games, and socialize. In general, this party had a purely safe and educational format. There was no alcohol or prohibited substances. Her friends recalled that Ani was her usual self that evening, cheerful and sociable. At 4 a.m., everyone dispersed. Like many others, Ani headed home on her bicycle. However, she never made it. Her worried parents began calling her cell phone, but no one answered. There was no word from her, which was unusual for Ani. Later, her friends told when and where they last saw her, but their words didn't bring comfort. The road went through a forest. Initially, they rode together, but their paths diverged at an intersection. She hadn't been seen since. Family and friends participated in the search. When their efforts failed, the Van Eitzel family turned to the police. Detectives began the investigation immediately. 70 police officers, 200 volunteers, and a rescue helicopter joined the search. At the same time, every possible scenario was considered. Close associates and all party attendees were questioned. It was discovered that Ani got along well with her family, so the possibility of her running away from home was ruled out right away. Additionally, she didn't have a boyfriend with whom she might have left. On the surface, there were no apparent reasons for her to end her life either. She had no enemies, no issues, and no psychological disorders. The event attendees didn't notice anything suspicious. None of them seemed suspect. Locals living near the disappearance site didn't see the girl described. Time passed, but Ani, along with her bicycle, remained missing. The route she took was thoroughly analyzed, and every surveillance camera along it was reviewed. The entire area was searched extensively. It was as if she and her bicycle had vanished into thin air. Thus, the police concluded that the missing girl had likely fallen victim to a crime. At the same time, they were struck by the complete lack of evidence. There were no traces of the missing girl, none of her belongings, nor signs of a struggle. Perhaps she was kidnapped, and soon someone would demand a ransom. But even that didn't happen. The hope of finding her alive was quickly fading. However, when flyers with her photo were posted everywhere and her parents spoke to the media, new details emerged. Several people contacted the police, reporting that on the night of April 27th, they heard suspicious screams in the forest. However, they couldn't see anything in the dark. Data from Anch's cell phone also raised false hopes. It was determined that the phone had been turned on and off several times that night and the following morning. The locations where the device was traced were checked, but nothing was found there either. The body and the bicycle. The girl's body was discovered a week later. A passerby in Lummen near the Albert Canal noticed a suspicious package floating on the water while on a walk along the embankment and immediately reported it to the police. The discovery was indeed suspicious, as the package contained a woman's body, carefully wrapped and weighted down with stones to prevent it from surfacing. However, the person who did this didn't account for the strong current and the process of decomposition. Since the body had been in the water for a long time, identifying the woman was difficult. Nevertheless, dental records confirmed the specialists' suspicions. There was no doubt that the woman found was the missing Anch van Oytsel. The autopsy revealed that the cause of her death was a blunt force trauma to the head. Additionally, it was discovered that she had been taken advantage of. The location where her body was found was 16 miles away from where she had disappeared, indicating that the criminal transported the victim to cover their tracks. It seemed that her body might have contained some clues about her tormentor, but no evidence was found. If her bicycle had been found, it might have yielded fingerprints of the perpetrator. Unfortunately, this didn't go as planned either. Several months later, the missing bicycle was found in Leuven, about 50 miles from the scene. The bicycle had been hidden in a secluded spot. The culprit had repainted and thoroughly cleaned it, leaving no traces. The news of Anch's tragic death was devastating. Many had hoped until the end that she would be found alive. For her parents, accepting what happened was unbearable. However, the desire to find the criminal and bring them to justice gave them the strength to keep going. It must be said that after many years, the moment of retribution finally came. A false lead. Initially, there were doubts about the identity of Kevin Paulus, the owner of the burned car. The investigation revealed some interesting facts. First, the young man was well known to the police. He had been involved in multiple fights in the past. By a strange coincidence, Anch's bicycle was found in the city where Shayna, the other victim, lived. Some even speculated that they might have known each other. This led to the theory that Kevin himself could have been the criminal, possibly ending Anch's life first, and then, years later, doing the same to Shayna before setting the car on fire and ending his own life. However, this assumption was short-lived. There was no direct evidence, and it was later revealed that the young man hadn't taken his own life but had been brutally deprived of it. The authorities faced a long and challenging investigation. The circumstances of the deaths were horrifying. If both incidents were connected, it meant a serial criminal was involved. The profile of such a person was concerning, intelligent enough to dispose of evidence effectively and cunning enough to remain undetected. This type of criminal is among the most difficult to catch. It takes a lot of time and effort to apprehend them, during which the perpetrator could find another victim. A lead. To learn more about the murdered couple, detectives met with their family and friends, but they provided no information of significant interest to the investigation. The detectives then decided to question the neighbors. The residents mentioned that the young couple lived together, but noticed nothing suspicious on the night of January 2nd to 3rd. However, they did mention a conflict between the victims and another neighbor. According to them, Shayna often quarreled with this seemingly nice man for some reason and would openly express her negative feelings toward him. Kevin would frequently stand up for her. Once, their argument almost escalated into a full-blown fight, but bystanders intervened. and the scuffle was stopped. Investigators decided to speak with this suspicious neighbor, and on January 4, 2010, a knock was heard at the apartment of Ronald Alan Jansen, the professor. The door was opened by a middle-aged man who didn't raise any concerns. He hospitably welcomed the detectives, listened to them, and provided explanations regarding the conflict with the neighboring couple. Ronald admitted that he did occasionally endure Shayna's taunts and Kevin's attacks, but he chalked it up to their youth. When asked where he was on January 2nd, he explained that he was home watching TV. Unfortunately, no one could confirm his alibi. At the same time, Ronnie made it clear that he wasn't involved in what happened to his adversaries and didn't feel any satisfaction or desire for revenge. However, something in his words raised doubts. Moreover, Jansen denied ever being involved in a fight, as he considered himself a well-mannered and respected person who wasn't capable of such behavior. As is often the case, appearances can be deceiving. Despite his outward image, the 39-year-old professor was arrested. Later, a search of his home uncovered a gun hidden in a large bag of cat food. After this unexpected discovery, his behavior changed. During the next interrogation, he was nervous and couldn't explain where the weapon came from. When investigators changed their interrogation tactics, Ronald began to break down. This led to the revelation of the horrific details of the crimes committed by the serial criminal who earned the nickname the Professor. The crime against Kevin and Shayna. Ronnie confessed that on the evening of January 2nd, he couldn't sleep, as usual, so he went outside to get some air. While walking, a car with Shayna and Kevin inside pulled up near the house. The hateful neighbors started mocking and insulting him. Unable to endure it, he went back to his apartment, retrieved a gun and a can of gasoline, but by the time he returned, the neighbors had left. He then decided to go to their home and knocked on the door. Shayna opened it. Showing the weapon, he ordered her to be quiet and called for Kevin. He then threatened to end their lives if they didn't drive him to a location he specified. The frightened young couple obeyed, went downstairs, got into the car, and drove out of town. Kevin was behind the wheel, while Shayna sat behind him, effectively trapping her as there were no rear doors. She cried and pleaded for their release, but Ronnie was unmoved. He sat next to the driver, keeping the gun trained on him. In a deserted area, the car stopped. Jansen then shot Kevin twice in the head, ending his life instantly. He then threw Kevin's body out of the car and drove over it. Shayna was crying and begging for her life. In response, the criminal told her he would spare her if she agreed to engage in intimacy with him. The girl complied, but he later went back on his word, deciding it wasn't wise to leave a witness alive. He shot her and dragged Kevin's lifeless body back into the car. Then he drove closer to their home and set the car on fire. Ronald returned through the field, arriving back at 4 a.m. He carefully washed, removed his soiled clothes, and burned them. He then disposed of the ashes in a ditch and hid the gun in the cat food, where it was eventually found. He hadn't managed to dispose of the weapon because he didn't expect to be caught so soon. Ronald insisted that his actions were a matter of honor, claiming that he was defending himself and putting an end to the constant harassment. His words had some validity, as it was later revealed during psychiatric evaluations that certain childhood events, which he had never spoken about, had significantly affected him. Ronnie's childhood. Young Ronnie was often bullied at school, mocked for his lisp. One day, he couldn't take the teasing anymore and fought back, beating his tormentor with a bat. As a result, he was suspended from school. To prevent further conflicts, Mrs. Jansen transferred her son to another school, where he was treated with understanding. However, the hardships didn't end there. The truth is, Ronald also faced mistreatment from his father. This led to a deep fear of being at home and insomnia, which plagued him for the rest of his life. The defendant admitted that at one point he decided to end it all, to take his own life. But he changed his mind, feeling sorry for his mother, who would be left alone. Instead, he decided to eliminate the source of his misery. A plan formed in his mind. His father suffered from diabetes and took insulin injections. Ronnie replaced the medication with another dangerous substance. As a result, his tormentor almost died, but was saved just in time. It was clear to the father whose doing it was. However, he did not go to the police, but instead started to torment his son even more. After that, the young man decided to run away from home. Apparently, the criminal's troubled mind underwent significant changes at a young age, making it impossible for him to tolerate any form of abuse. However, later, it became clear that Jansen's anger was directed not only at his tormentors, but also at innocent people. The crime of Anch. In a shocking turn, Ronald confessed to the crime of Anch, committed in 2007. According to him, she became an unintended victim. That night, he couldn't sleep and decided to drive to another town. Along the way, he encountered a beautiful girl on a bicycle. He wanted to get to know her better, but he chose a poor way to approach her. He blocked her path. Naturally, the girl was frightened, got off her bike, and started to run. Jansen got angry, chased her down, tied her hands, and threatened her with a gun. He then forced her into his car and took her to his home. Ronnie promised to let Anch go if she didn't cause any trouble. The suspect claimed he didn't intend to take advantage of or deprive the girl of her life. He just wanted her to stay with him for a while. By morning, he planned to let her go. However, when he was alone with the girl, his plans changed. He realized he couldn't do what he had told her because she would tell everyone. So, Ronald beat her, took advantage of her, and finally struck her with a hammer. He then disposed of her body by placing it in a bag filled with rocks and throwing it into a canal. When the cold-blooded suspect returned home, he cleaned everything with cleaning agents and destroyed all evidence. His words about just wanting to spend the night with Anch sounded unconvincing. It was clear that the criminal knew exactly what he was doing and understood the consequences. Thus, when he kidnapped the girl, he knew he would end her life. Intimate predator. Later, Ronald confessed to 3 additional assaults he committed while studying in Leuven. However, he couldn't remember the faces of the women or the dates of the incidents. In total, during the investigation, he admitted to 5 similar episodes. Nevertheless, the investigation suggested a different number. He was accused of 20 assaults that occurred between 2001 and 2010 in student dormitories. The suspect would break in through a window, attack, and threaten with a knife. Afterward, he would proceed with intimate acts without any resistance. Additionally, it was believed he could have been involved in a series of 10 crimes committed in 1991, as the method was similar. However, this remains speculation without substantial evidence. The trial. On September 20th, 2011, the defendant stood trial. Zvonimir Miskovich, Ronald's lawyer, tried to mitigate his responsibility by highlighting the positive aspects of his character and his difficult childhood. None of his acquaintances could believe that quiet Ronnie had turned out to be such a monster. His 63-year-old mother testified that she had never seen her son chasing women and considered him a good person. During a visit, he confessed to me that all the crimes happened in moments of madness, she said. I'm devastated, but Ronnie is still my boy. I have to be there for him no matter how hard it is. Ronald's ex-wife also testified that she had a good relationship with him and trusted him with their children twice a week. I always thought he was a kind and gentle person, she said. This criminal is not the person I knew. The prosecution sought the maximum possible sentence for the defendant. The prosecutor emphasized that they were dealing with a dangerous psychopath, a serial predator, and a criminal who has no place among normal people. Finally, on October 21st, 2011, Ronald Jansen was found guilty of the crimes against Anch, Shayna, and Kevin, including their abduction and the assaults on the women with the use of torture. The mitigating circumstances mentioned by the defense were not considered. The court sentenced the defendant to life imprisonment. Controversial justice. On September 10, 2012, Ronald was found guilty of 12 assaults committed with the threat of using a weapon, multiple attempts on life, as well as torture and barbarism. However, given the previous sentence, the new verdict did not add any additional punishment. One might think that a life sentence is a fair judgment for a mass criminal. Unfortunately, practice in Belgium suggests otherwise. Offenders with such sentences spend between 15 to 23 years behind bars and are then released. In fact, by 2026, Jansen could be eligible for parole and continue his bloody crimes. It seems the professor was aware of this, which is why he smiled during the trial and showed no remorse for the sentence he received. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel. There are many shocking stories ahead of you.